Taiwan, I'm Sally Jensen with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. China can't carry out an amphibious invasion of Taiwan, but is more than capable of blockading the island. That's the assessment of most Taiwanese and US experts polled in a new survey by China Power Project at CSIS and the Institute for National Defense and Security Research here in Taiwan. A total of 87 Taiwan and US experts were interviewed. The majority believe a Taiwan Strait crisis is likely in 2024. They define such a crisis as a situation similar to the large-scale exercises conducted by China in 1995. The survey also showed that more than half of respondents think China wouldn't wait for President-elect Lai Ching-te to take office before conducting large-scale exercises. There was debate, however, on whether those drills would take place before or after May. For more on the survey, Jaime Ocon spoke to Brian Hart of the China Power Project.
Brian, I wanted to first start with your opinion on what are the biggest takeaways from this report that you conducted with both US and Taiwanese experts.
I think one of the big takeaways is, China has different options in terms of what it can do to pressure, coerce Taiwan, and, to force unification too, if that's what it deems what it wants to do. I think, so a lot of the discourse here in Washington often revolves around an invasion. And so one of the things that I think came out of this survey is that, in the next couple of years, a blockade or a quarantine is more likely than an invasion. At least that's what these experts largely saw as the case. I think that's got a lot to do with the capabilities that China has at its disposal. I think our experts largely viewed a quarantine and a blockade as being more feasible than an invasion. But I think another big takeaway from this survey is there are significant differences in views among scholars from the US and Taiwan about what exactly the threat looks like from China. I think the Taiwan scholars in the survey tended across pretty much all questions to view China as being slightly less capable in terms of its military capabilities.
Another section of this report talks about how long Taiwan could last if China were to blockade the main island with limited or maybe no US intervention. Did anything shock you from these findings?
I think one of the things maybe that was surprising was how much, this was one of the questions where there was actually quite a lot of similarities between the US and Taiwan views on this question. So there were very different, thoughts, but I think largely the views coalesced around Taiwan probably being able to wait out about 3 months. There's a big spectrum, but few people thought Taiwan would be able to last more than, say, 6 months or a year. It was much more focused in that what we kind of put as a medium range of around maybe a month, 1 to 3 months, or 3 to 6 months. So somewhere in there is about where most people saw that being. So in our survey, we used the word quarantine to describe a law enforcement-led scenario in which China uses not the military, but law enforcement and civilian, or at least quasi-civilian organizations like the China Coast Guard to block traffic to and from Taiwan, to shut off trade. Whereas a blockade is with the PLA, the Chinese military, leading those operations. So there's a significant difference in terms of escalations and what Beijing is willing to put out there in the Taiwan Strait.
Now, given these findings, what do you think policymakers here in Taiwan should do to reflect the findings that are in this report and maybe apply that to their actual military strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's one that there's a lot of divided views on. In my perspective, one of the things that this survey highlights is that we certainly can't rule out the option of China pursuing a blockade. And so the kinds of forces that you need to run a blockade or defend against a blockade are really different from the kinds of forces that you would use to repel or stop an invasion. So I think, Taiwan does need to take those threats of a blockade seriously. And that also means taking a lot of, non-military responses as well, and thinking about energy security, food security, and how Taiwan can make itself more resilient to a scenario like a blockade.
That was Brian Hart of the China Power Project speaking to our reporter, Jaime Ocon. North Korea has fired cruise missiles into seas west of the country. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff reported the launches on Wednesday. They follow reports that North Korea has torn down a monument to peace between the countries in its capital, Pyongyang. Tensions have been mounting on the peninsula, with leader Kim Jong-un calling South Korea his country's primary foe. At least 20 people have died in a landslide that hit southwestern China on Monday. Rescue workers in Yunnan province are trying to find 24 people still missing in snowy, freezing conditions. Although landslides are common in this part of China, it's still unclear what triggered this one. A new proposal in Taiwan's legislature to allow absentee voting is raising concerns over election interference. Tiffany Wong reports.
Legislators from the Kuomintang are pushing forward with a plan to allow absentee voting for Taiwanese voters. Taiwanese voters must submit their ballots where their household is registered and has a manual vote counting process that the public is invited to watch. It's meant to protect the country's elections from interference, but can be inconvenient and costly for those who live far from home and even out of the country. Now, KMT legislators say they need to follow the example of other democratic countries to protect citizens' right to vote.
世界上已经有非常多民主的国家，包含美国、丹麦、加拿大、日本、韩国、德国、澳洲等等的这些以色列实施不在籍投票都已经行之有年哦。所以连这个印尼和菲律宾的移工都可以直接在台湾投票选他们的总统。
But an absentee voting system could raise concerns about election interference, especially from neighboring China. Hundreds of thousands of Taiwanese live or work in China, and voting from abroad could spark national security fears and generate heated debate in Taiwan's legislature, where the KMT is the largest party but does not hold a majority. Justin Wu and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Incoming legislators from the Taiwan People's Party have also expressed support for an absentee voting bill. Absentee voting could help the TPP gain votes from young people who face difficulties traveling home to vote. They also want to reform the counting process, which some of the party's supporters say could be vulnerable to fraud. The new legislative session will begin in February, and while no party has a majority, the KMT and TPP have hinted at working together. Doctors in Taiwan plan to start using a new AI-powered method for the early detection of pancreatic cancer this year. A team at National Taiwan University Hospital say they have invented the world's first artificial intelligence diagnostic tool for pancreatic cancer. The cancer, when at an early stage, is hard to detect because people don't usually have symptoms and because it can be too small to be picked up on CT scans. The Taiwan researchers say their AI-powered system can help doctors to detect early-stage cancer.
每个病人的他的基因的变化是不一样的，即使是胰脏癌，那我们会根据他不一样的结果来选择一些药物。
Taiwanese painter Yongfu has died aged 101. The self-taught artist created the outdoor art space Rainbow Village in central Taiwan. John Van Trieste takes a look at his life and the impact of his work.
This is the life's work of Yongfu, a self-taught artist whose bright, eye-catching murals earned him the nickname Rainbow Grandpa. It's an open-air space in Taichung called Rainbow Village, and its fame turned Huang into an accidental celebrity. He was already in his 80s when he began the project, but his short career was prolific and popular. Today, Rainbow Village is one of Taiwan's most Instagrammed spots. And its story mirrors Huang's own. He spoke to TaiwanPlus just a few weeks before his death on Tuesday at the age of 101. Huang was born in China and became a soldier as a young man. When communists took over China, Huang joined the wave of people fleeing to Taiwan. Rainbow Village was originally built for exiled military men in the city of Taichung, and it was his home for many years. In 2007, though, the community that had formed here was pushed out for a new housing project. Huang began covering the walls in bright murals as an act of protest. Other than informal drawing lessons from his father, he had no art training. But his style, with fanciful shapes and sharp color contrasts, caught attention. Once word spread, the village was spared demolition, and it became a tourist attraction. It wasn't all rainbows in Rainbow Village. In his final years, Huang had a falling out with a company formed to manage the site. Workers were caught painting over some of the murals, though they say these were their own additions, not Huang's original works. Despite the controversy, Huang continued to paint. Taichung locals who knew him are sharing their memories. The city of Taichung says he leaves a treasured legacy too, with the mayor posting a personal tribute on social media. There are plans to set up a memorial corner to Huang at Rainbow Village in the coming days, a finishing touch on what's become a Taiwanese monument. Klein Wong and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
A snake-shaped robot and 4 drones will be sent into the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. The plant's operator wrapped up testing the drones on Tuesday and plans to deploy them inside one of the damaged reactors in February. The drones will help figure out how to remove melted fuel debris inside the plant. It's been 13 years since 3 of Fukushima's 4 reactors suffered a meltdown following an earthquake and tsunami.
それから安全を確認しながら、とにかく安全第一でですね、調査を実施できるように実施してまいりたいと考えております。
The Doomsday Clock is set to 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it's been to global destruction in 7 decades. The threat of a global nuclear arms race, climate change, emerging biological threats, and AI were cited as driving the existential risk. And one of the scientists who helped set the symbolic clock says AI-enabled disinformation could prevent the world from dealing with any threats.
You know, the problems of the world right now are pretty hard. They're hard problems. And if we don't even agree on the facts, then we're never going to be able to solve it. So disinformation, AI-enabled disinformation, makes it harder to solve very, very deep problems.
Sea urchins are a delicacy in Taiwan, but as Laurel Stewart reports, farmers are having to find new ways to expand the industry as climate change threatens their habitats.
Small, spherical, and spindly. These sea urchins are being farmed in Taidong County on Taiwan's eastern coast. They usually grow on rocks on the seafloor off Taiwan's Penghu Island, and they're considered quite the delicacy. But overfishing, rising temperatures, and passing typhoons have killed populations and disrupted the domestic sea urchin market. Now, this indoor farming experiment run by Taiwan's Agriculture Ministry could be a solution. It's providing a safe place for the creatures to thrive.
一方面提供稳定的水温，还有这些稳定的食物给它。那另外一方面呢，也可以降低外面所带来的这些污染。
One basket here can grow about 10 sea urchins. They cling to the gaps in the basket and can safely feed on seaweed. Farmers are trying to be as energy and space efficient as possible, using solar panels to provide shade as well as generate the electricity needed to run the tanks.
这样子的环境之下，它的单位面积是受到限制的，所以我们必须要去想办法去增加它单位面积之内它可以获得的效益。
Any excess electricity generated is sold to Taiwan's state power company, helping boost farmers' incomes. This style of farming is expected to provide ample supply for Taiwan's sea urchin market, and farmers say they'll next move on to cultivate other marine animals. It's a low-cost and energy-efficient model that could help the country expand its fisheries. Alex Chen and Laurel Stewart for TaiwanPlus.
2 Taiwanese-American documentaries are in the running for an Oscar at this year's Academy Awards. Island in Between from director S. Liu Jiang explores Taiwan's outlying islands of Jinmen and the complex subject of Taiwanese identity, while Nai Nai and Waipo from director Sean Wang documents the lively relationship between 2 elderly grandmothers. The award ceremony is set to take place on March 10th. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Sally Jensen. Take care and see you next time.